It had been years since the man had last thought about the strange night that changed his life. He was just an ordinary man, living a quiet, solitary life in his small house in the woods. That night, the memory of the alien princess was faint, like a distant dream he couldn't fully grasp. But everything changed when he heard a knock at his door. Standing on the other side was a woman who seemed out of place. She wore a dark cloak that covered most of her body, but her eyes, those piercing eyes, felt oddly familiar. She had the look of someone who had seen 1,000 lifetimes, yet her presence was calm, as if she was waiting for something. She didn't speak at first, just stared at him with an intensity that made him uneasy. "Who are you?" the man asked, trying to hide his surprise. His voice was steady, but his heart raced. He wasn't used to visitors, especially not visitors like this. The woman stepped forward, pushing back the hood of her cloak to reveal her face. The moment he saw her, the man froze. It was her, the alien princess. She looked different now, older, but there was no mistaking it. He recognized those eyes, those otherworldly features. But how was this possible? The princess, the one he saved all those years ago, was standing in front of him. He never thought he would see her again. "I've been looking for you," she said, her voice calm but with an edge of urgency. For a long time, the man stood speechless, still trying to process the moment. You're the princess, right? I saved you all those years ago. But why are you here? How did you find me?" She nodded slowly, her expression serious. "Yes, I'm the one you saved. I've never forgotten you. I've traveled far and wide across the galaxy, searching for you. And now, after all this time, I've finally found you." His mind raced with confusion. He had never expected anything like this. The night he saved her had been chaotic, a blur of action. He remembered the alien attackers, the way they tried to take her. But after that night, he thought he would never see her again. He'd return to his normal life, never imagining the consequences of that one act of bravery. But now, standing before him, was proof that his actions had consequences beyond what he could have imagined. The alien princess, someone he had saved out of sheer instinct, was now seeking him out after years of silence. And from the look in her eyes, it wasn't just a simple reunion. There was something more she wanted from him, something far bigger than the two of them. "Why me?" the man asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "Why after all these years?" The princess took a deep breath. "Because you're the only one who can help me now. My world, my people, are in danger. And I need your help again." As she spoke, the man felt a chill run down his spine. He knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning of something he wasn't ready for. The man sat down on his worn-out couch, still trying to grasp the situation. The alien princess, the same one he had saved years ago, stood in front of him, her eyes full of urgency. She had come back into his life, and everything seemed to be moving too fast. "I know this must be a lot for you to take in," she said softly, sensing his confusion. "But please, let me explain." He nodded, not sure what to say. The last thing he expected on this quiet afternoon was to have a princess from another world at his doorstep, asking for his help. But there she was, the same woman he had saved from a deadly attack, now standing before him like a figure from a long-forgotten dream. "You saved me once," she began, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "I was just an outcast, on the run from a war that I couldn't control. I was weak, vulnerable, and lost. That night, when you helped me, you didn't know who I was. You didn't know what I meant to the galaxy. But you still fought for me. You didn't hesitate, even when it meant your life was at risk." The man remembered it all, as if it had happened yesterday. The fear in her eyes, the chaos of the attack, the way he had jumped into action without thinking. It had been a night filled with panic, a blur of strange alien voices and sounds he couldn't understand. But in that moment when he saw her in danger, he didn't care about the risks. He just wanted to save her. "I remember," he said quietly. I didn't even know who you were. I just saw someone in trouble, and I had to help." The princess smiled faintly, a trace of sadness in her eyes. "You didn't know who I was, but you still treated me like a person. That's why I never forgot you. And that's why I've spent years looking for you." Her voice became more serious, her gaze hardening with the weight of her words. "My people, my world, they need you again. The galaxy is in turmoil. A faction of alien invaders is trying to destroy everything I've worked for. I was forced to leave my throne, to escape. They've taken over my people, and I need your help to take it all back." The man leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean? I'm just a man. I'm no warrior. What could I possibly do to help you?" She shook her head. "You underestimate yourself. It's not about weapons or strength. It's about the one thing that no one else in this galaxy has, the human spirit. The strength to fight against overwhelming odds. You proved that when you saved me. I need that strength again." The words hit him harder than he expected. She wasn't asking for a soldier. She was asking for him, the same man who had done the impossible once before. He didn't know what he could offer, but something deep inside him felt the weight of her words. He stared at her for a long moment, the quiet between them heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can help you, but I can't just turn my back on you again." The princess nodded, a sense of relief in her eyes. "I knew I could count on you. Together, we can take back what's ours." The man stood up, his mind racing with what he had just agreed to. He had no idea what the future held, but one thing was clear: his life was no longer just his own. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. The man spent most of his time processing what the princess had told him. His quiet life, once peaceful and predictable, was now in chaos. He couldn't stop thinking about their conversation, the things she said about the galaxy, her people, and the dangerous faction that had chased her. His mind raced as he tried to wrap his head around the impossible reality that had suddenly been thrust upon him. At night, he would lie awake, staring at the ceiling. The sounds of the forest outside his window were still familiar, but they no longer brought him the peace they once did. Instead, they felt distant, like the world outside his home was something he could no longer ignore. The princess's presence had shaken him to his core, and the thought of her plea for help haunted him. One afternoon, the princess returned to his house. She didn't say much when she arrived, just looked at him with those same piercing eyes, as though she was waiting for something. The man had 1,000 questions, but there was something in her silence that told him to wait. Finally, he broke the stillness. "I remember that night," he said. "I remember saving you, but it feels like a dream now. I never thought about what happened after that. I just went back to my life and forgot." The princess nodded, understanding. "It's natural to forget. What you did that night wasn't easy, and you had no reason to think it would change your life. But for me, it did. You saved my life, and that moment changed everything for me. It was the moment I realized that there was something different about humans, something that no other species has." The man raised an eyebrow, confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm just me. I didn't do anything special." "You underestimate yourself," the princess said softly. "Humans have this incredible ability to fight, to survive, and to protect one another. In a galaxy full of alien races, many of them don't understand the power of compassion or self-sacrifice. But you acted without thinking of the consequences. You risked your life for me, a stranger. And that's something no other species would have done." Her words made him uneasy. He wasn't used to being praised, especially not for something that seemed so simple to him. He had acted because it was the right thing to do, not because he thought it would change the fate of a galaxy. "I never asked for any of this," he said quietly. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who happened to be in the right place at the right time." The princess smiled, but there was a sadness in her eyes. "That's where you're wrong. You're more than just a man. You're someone who has the potential to change everything. That's why I need you now." The words hit him hard. He wasn't sure what she meant by that, but something inside him stirred. The quiet life he had once known felt like a distant memory. He wasn't just an observer anymore. He was part of something much larger than himself. "What do you need from me?" he asked, his voice shaky with uncertainty. The princess's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, the weight of the galaxy seemed to rest on her shoulders. "I need you to help me fight," she said simply, "to help me take back what was stolen from me. Together, we can stop this war before it spreads any further." The man could hardly believe what he was hearing. He had barely come to terms with the reality that he was now involved in an intergalactic struggle, and already, trouble was knocking at his door. The princess's words about fighting a war had seemed distant at first, but now they were about to become a reality. The next evening, just as the sun began to set, a low rumble echoed in the distance. The man stood by his window, peering out into the woods. The familiar silence of the forest was now disturbed, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He didn't know what to expect, but something felt wrong. The princess, who had been quiet all day, suddenly appeared beside him. "We need to move now," she said urgently. Before the man could ask why, the sound of an engine broke through the trees. It wasn't a normal sound, not from any vehicle or plane he had ever heard. The noise grew louder, closer, and soon, the unmistakable shape of an alien ship came into view, hovering above the treetops. The ship was sleek and dark, with sharp edges that gave it an intimidating look. It wasn't just any ship. It was the same faction that had attacked the princess years ago. "They found us," the princess whispered, her voice tinged with fear. "This is the faction I've been running from. They've come for me." The man's heart began to race. He had no idea what kind of enemies the princess had, but he knew they were not something he could face alone. Yet he had no choice. She was here, and he couldn't let them take her. He had already risked his life once for her, and now, it seemed, he would have to do it again. "Get down," the princess shouted as a blast of energy shot from the ship, narrowly missing the house. The blast left a crater in the ground, sending dirt and rocks flying into the air. The force of the attack made the house shake, and the man stumbled, trying to keep his balance. Without wasting another second, the princess grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the back of the house. "We need to move quickly. We're not safe here," she said, her voice steady, despite the chaos around them. The man didn't question her. He followed as she led him into the dense woods behind the house. The sound of the ship hovered overhead, its engines now making a constant hum as it circled above, searching for them. The man could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on him. He was not prepared for this. He was just a man with no combat training, no knowledge of alien technology, and no idea what he was really facing. But the princess was depending on him. They ran deeper into the forest, the trees offering little protection from the ship above. The man's legs burned, but he kept going, driven by the sense of urgency that filled the air. He could hear the princess's quick breaths beside him, but her grip on him never loosened. She was leading him, guiding him through the unknown. And for the first time, he understood just how dangerous the path ahead would be. Suddenly, the ship descended, its shadows falling over them like a dark cloud. The princess pulled him to the ground, hiding behind a large boulder. The ship hovered just above, its searchlights scanning the area. "Stay down," the princess whispered, her voice low and focused. "We can't be seen." The man felt his pulse quicken as the searchlights passed dangerously close. He was certain the ship had seen them, but they were too far to be caught yet. Every second felt like an eternity. "I'll never be able to fight them off," the man said, his voice shaking. "What do we do?" The princess's expression was calm, but there was a glimmer of something else in her eyes. "Hope. We fight. I've been training for years, but I couldn't do this alone. I need you. You're the one who can turn the tide." As the ship circled overhead, The man realized she wasn't asking him to be a soldier. She was asking him to be the same man who saved her long ago. Someone who would risk everything, even when the odds seemed impossible. The night was eerily quiet as the man and the princess crouched behind a large boulder, watching the ship above them. The searchlights swept across the trees, their beams flickering like a predator's gaze, moving closer and closer to where they hid. The man's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to steady his breathing. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but there was no turning back now. He had to do something, anything, to protect the princess. The princess glanced at him, her eyes full of determination. She was calm, but the tension in the air made the moment feel fragile. She reached into the folds of her cloak, pulling out a small, intricately carved box. It looked ancient, worn by time, yet there was something about it that made it seem powerful. "Take it," she whispered, holding the box out to him. "This is the key to stopping them." The man stared at the box, confused. "What is it?" "Some kind of weapon." She shook her head. "No, not a weapon. This is much more than that. It's something my people have kept hidden for centuries. Only one with the strength to carry it can use it." The man hesitated, unsure of what she meant. He was no warrior, no hero. He was just an ordinary man who had been dragged into a fight he never asked for. But he saw the look in her eyes. She was serious, and she was trusting him. She needed him. He reached out slowly and took the box. The moment his fingers brushed against it, a surge of energy coursed through him. It was a strange feeling, almost like the box was alive, pulsing with power. The man gasped, his hand tightening around it instinctively. The princess watched him closely. "You feel it, don't you? That's the power of my people, the strength that lies within us all. But it's only accessible to those who can unlock it. That's why I need you." He looked at her, still in disbelief. "But I don't know how to use this power. I'm just a man." She nodded, her expression softening. "That's exactly why you are the one. It's not about physical strength or skill. It's about the will to fight, to protect. Your humanity is what makes you different. You have a power no alien can understand." The man stood up slowly, holding the box tightly in his hands. He could feel something stirring inside him, a new energy that he had never experienced before. It was as if the weight of the galaxy itself was being placed in his hands, and for the first time since this nightmare had begun, he felt a spark of hope. "We need to act now," the princess said, her voice filled with urgency. "They're closing in. You have the power to turn the tide. You just have to believe in yourself." The man took a deep breath, his nerves shaking, but his resolve hardening. He was no soldier, but he couldn't stand by and do nothing. Not again. He had already made one choice to fight, and he wouldn't back down now. The fate of the princess, and perhaps the galaxy, was in its hands. As he raised the box high, a brilliant light suddenly burst from it, enveloping them both. The energy from the box surged through him, filling every part of his being. It was overwhelming, but it didn't hurt. It felt right, as though this was what he was meant to do. His mind raced, and in that instant, everything clicked into place. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was something more. The light flickered, and as it faded, he felt different, stronger, more confident. He looked at the princess, who nodded approvingly. "It's time," she said. "Let's go." With the newfound power coursing through him, the man felt ready. He wasn't sure exactly what he was capable of, but for the first time since the princess had knocked on his door, he felt ready to face whatever came next. The battle was just beginning. The man and the princess moved quickly through the woods, the sound of the ship above them still echoing in the night. The light from the ship's search beams flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the trees. The princess, her eyes focused ahead, didn't look back, but the man could feel the tension in her every movement. She had led him this far, but now, it seemed the danger was only just beginning. The man had felt the strange power from the box flow through him, and though he wasn't sure what to do with it, he could sense its potential. It wasn't just a physical strength, it was something deeper, something inside him had awakened. But as much as he felt stronger, the weight of responsibility had grown heavier. He wasn't sure if he was ready to carry the burden the princess had placed on him. "We need to keep moving," the princess said, her voice sharp but calm. "They won't stop until they have me, and once they get their hands on me, it's over." He nodded, not speaking, as they pushed through the thick underbrush. He had never imagined anything like this. A few days ago, he was just a man, minding his own business. Now he was running through the forest with an alien princess, on the run from a powerful enemy. His life had been turned upside down. As they moved deeper into the woods, they reached a small clearing where the princess stopped suddenly. She turned to face him, her expression hard but filled with determination. "You need to understand something," she said. "The faction after me is more powerful than you can imagine. They control entire planets, have armies of soldiers at their disposal. They're ruthless, and they won't hesitate to destroy anyone who stands in their way." The man listened carefully. He had no idea what he was really up against. To him, it felt like something out of a science fiction story. But this was real. This was happening. And whether he liked it or not, he was part of it now. "I didn't ask for any of this," he said, his voice filled with frustration. "I just helped you that night because it was the right thing to do. But now I'm caught up in something I don't understand. I'm not some soldier, some warrior." The princess took a step closer, her gaze intense. "You don't have to be. You're more than that. It's not about fighting in the way you think. It's about something deeper, something the aliens don't understand. You've already proven that when you risked your life for me. You didn't think, you just acted. That's what makes you different. That's why you can help." The man looked at her, still unsure of what to think. He had never seen himself as a hero, never thought he would be in a position to save anyone, let alone an alien princess. Yet, as he stood here, in the middle of the woods, he realized that maybe she was right. Maybe he did have something that others didn't. But could he truly be the one to help her? Before he could respond, a loud noise broke the silence. The ship was getting closer, its engines roaring as it descended through the trees. The lights flashed brighter, and the man's heart raced. He could hear the sound of the search beams swiping through the forest, growing louder by the second. "They're here," the princess whispered urgently. "We don't have much time. We need to act now." The man took a deep breath, his hands trembling. This was it. He had no choice now. He was in it, whether he was ready or not. As the ship's shadow loomed over them, he clenched his fists, feeling the strange power surge within him. The time had come to face what he never expected. "I'll follow your lead," he said, his voice steady despite the fear building inside him. "Let's do this." The princess nodded, her eyes bright with resolve. They were ready. "You said." The air was thick with tension as the man and the princess stood together, watching the ship hover above the clearing. The beams of light swept over the forest floor, searching, probing. The man's heart raced as he gripped the box tightly in his hands. He still didn't fully understand the power it held, but something inside him urged him to act. The princess, standing beside him, had a calmness to her that he couldn't help but admire. She had been through so much already, yet here she was, standing ready to face her enemies again. "Are you ready?" the princess asked, her voice soft but firm. The man took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready for something like this, but I don't have a choice anymore. You need my help, and I'm here." The princess gave him a small smile, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You're more ready than you think." Without another word, she motioned for him to follow her. They moved quickly, but silently, weaving through the trees as the ship's searchlights continued to scan the area. The man's mind raced. He had no idea what the princess had in mind, but he trusted her. They had come this far together, and somehow he felt like they could make it through whatever came next. As they moved deeper into the forest, the princess suddenly stopped. "This is where we make our stand," she said quietly. "We don't have the luxury of running anymore. The ship is coming in fast. We need to fight." The man's heart skipped a beat. "Fight? How?" The princess turned to face him, her expression serious. "I've trained for this my whole life, but I never expected to do it with a human at my side. We can't let them take me. Not again. And you have something they don't understand. Something that makes you stronger than they'll ever be." The man's brow furrowed in confusion. "I don't feel strong. I'm just a man." "You're more than that," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're the reason we have a chance. Your courage, your willingness to protect, those are the qualities that will make us unstoppable." His chest tightened at her words. He had never thought of himself as a hero, never imagined being in this position. But as he looked into the princess's eyes, something inside him stirred. She had been through so much, and now she was asking for his help. The thought of letting her down, of not being able to protect her, was unbearable. The sound of the ship's engines grew louder, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was getting closer, and there was no more time to waste. The princess turned to him one last time. "Stay close to me. We fight together." He nodded, the weight of the situation heavy on his shoulders. But he knew that this was his chance. He had already stepped into a battle he didn't understand. But now he had a purpose. He wasn't just saving a princess anymore. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. As the ship descended into the clearing, the man felt the power from the box surge within him again. It was as if the energy had become a part of him, guiding him, strengthening him. He didn't know how to use it, but he trusted that it would help him do what needed to be done. With the princess by his side, he prepared for the battle ahead. They were ready. Together, they would face whatever came next. The ship hovered just above the clearing, its engines humming with a low, menacing growl. The man could feel the ground tremble beneath his feet as the searchlights swept across the trees. He stood beside the princess, heart pounding, ready to face whatever was coming. There was no more running now. This was it, the moment where everything would change. The princess turned to him, her eyes sharp with determination. "Stay focused. They'll come for me first. You need to make sure they don't take me." He nodded, his hands tightening around the box. The strange power still surged inside him, but he wasn't sure how to control it. He could feel the energy pulsing in his chest, and part of him was afraid of what might happen if he tried to use it. But the princess needed him. They needed to fight. Suddenly, the ship's doors opened, and a group of heavily armed alien soldiers began to descend. They were large, their armor dark and intimidating, their weapons deadly. The man had never seen anything like them before, but he didn't hesitate. This was what he had been called to do. The princess stepped forward, her posture strong, as if she had faced countless battles like this before. "We're not afraid of you," she shouted, her voice carrying across the clearing. The alien soldiers hesitated for a moment, clearly surprised by her confidence. Then their leader stepped forward, tall and imposing, with dark eyes that seemed to see through everything. He sneered at the princess. "You think you can stop us? You're nothing but a stray, and your human ally is even weaker. Surrender now, or we'll destroy everything you care about." The man's breath caught in his throat, but the princess didn't flinch. She turned to him, her eyes filled with a quiet strength. "We can't back down. This is our chance. The galaxy depends on us." The man didn't know what came over him in that moment, but a sudden rush of energy surged from the box. Without thinking, he raised it high. The moment he did, a brilliant light exploded from it, sending a shockwave through the air. The soldiers were thrown off balance, their weapons falling to the ground as the light filled the clearing. The princess, watching in awe, stepped forward, her voice steady. "This is the power of our people, but it's yours to control now." The leader of the alien faction growled, recovering from the blast. "You think this is enough to stop us? You're a fool." But the man didn't back down. He could feel the energy inside him growing stronger, becoming more focused. He wasn't sure how he was doing it, but the power was there, guiding him. He focused on the leader, and with a single motion, the light from the box shot forward, striking the alien directly. The leader staggered back, his armor crackling with energy as the blast hit him. His eyes widened in shock and fear, but before he could react, the princess was upon him. With a swift, powerful move, she knocked his weapon from his hand, her strength surprising even the man. The alien soldiers, now without their leader, hesitated. They had expected to overpower the human and the princess easily. But now, with the energy of the box and the fierce will of both the princess and the man, they saw that this battle would not go as planned. "Leave now," the princess commanded, her voice cold and firm. "Return to your ships and tell your leaders that Earth will not fall to your threats." The soldiers, realizing they had underestimated their enemies, exchanged uncertain glances. One by one, they began to retreat, unsure of how to deal with the power they had just witnessed. The man and the princess stood together, watching them go. As the ship ascended into the sky, the man felt the weight of the moment sink in. They had won. The galaxy was still in danger, but for now, they had taken a stand. The princess turned to him, her eyes softening with gratitude. "You did it. We did it." The man looked at her, a mixture of disbelief and pride filling him. "I don't know how, but we did." Together, they watched as the last of the alien forces disappeared into the stars, the future uncertain but filled with hope. The battle was over, but the man still stood in the clearing, looking up at the sky as the last of the enemy ships disappeared into the distance. The energy from the box still lingered in the air, its light fading slowly. He could feel the power inside him, but now that the fight was over, it felt strange, almost heavy. He had never asked for any of this, and yet here he was, standing with an alien princess who had just led them both through a fight he could never have imagined. Beside him, the princess was quiet. Her gaze was fixed on the sky, her face unreadable, but he could sense the weight of what had just happened. They had won, yes, but at what cost? The galaxy was still fractured, still under threat. The princess had been forced to leave her home and her people, and now she was in a position she had never imagined. He turned to her, his voice low. "What happens now?" The princess looked at him, her eyes still filled with that same strength he had seen when they first met. "Now, we rebuild. I can't go back to my throne. Not yet. Not until my people are free and the galaxy is safe. But that's something we'll have to do together." The man wasn't sure what she meant by together. He was just an ordinary human. What role could he possibly play in the galaxy's future? But the way she looked at him, the trust in her eyes, told him that whatever came next, she wasn't asking him to follow her orders. She was asking him to stand by her side. "You've already done more than I ever imagined," the princess continued, her voice steady. "You've shown me that there's something in you, something that no one else in the galaxy has. Your courage, your willingness to protect, it's more powerful than any weapon, any army." The man shook his head, still unsure. "I didn't do anything special. I just—" "You did everything," the princess interrupted. "You saved me. You helped me fight. And you've proven that humanity has the power to change things. You're not just a man from Earth anymore. You're part of something much bigger than yourself." The man felt a lump form in his throat. He had never thought of himself as special. He had never seen himself as anything more than someone trying to get by in a quiet life. But now, standing here, beside the princess, he could feel the truth in her words. He had done something more. He had helped her, and together, they had changed the course of the future. "I don't know if I can lead anyone," he said quietly, his voice filled with doubt. "I'm not a leader. I'm just a man." The princess smiled, her expression softening. Maybe not yet, but you're stronger than you think. And the galaxy needs strength like yours. You're not just a man. You're someone who has already changed the fate of this world." The man looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He had never asked for this. He had never wanted to be a hero, a leader. But now, with the princess by his side, he realized that maybe, just maybe, he was capable of more than he had ever imagined. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the clearing, the man stood tall. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. Together with the princess, they would rebuild not just a world, but a galaxy. And this time, he would fight not just for survival, but for hope. The princess stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice steady and confident. The man took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the future on his shoulders, but also the strength that had come from the bond they had shared. "Yes," he said, his voice clear and strong. "I'm ready." Together, they turned toward the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. The man and the princess stood at the edge of the clearing, watching as the last of the alien ships disappeared beyond the horizon. The sky, once filled with the threat of war, was now clear and calm, as if the universe itself had taken a deep breath. The silence around them felt heavy, but not in a bad way. It was a silence that spoke of a new beginning. The man felt a weight lift off his shoulders, but at the same time, he could still feel the power of the box pulsing lightly in his hands. He hadn't used it all at once, but he knew that it was now part of him, a part of him that he had never expected to possess. The strange power wasn't just about strength. It was about something deeper, something connected to the core of who he was. It made him realize that maybe, just maybe, he had more power than he ever realized. The princess stood beside him, her face softening as she looked up at the stars. The war was far from over, but for the first time in years, there was hope. They had won this battle, but she knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Still, she felt a sense of relief. The man, her unlikely ally, had proven that even in the darkest moments, humanity's resilience could shine through. "I never thought I'd be standing here like this," the man said, breaking the silence. His voice was quiet, but his words carried a weight. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to live a quiet life." The princess turned to him, her eyes full of understanding. "None of us ever asked for what happened to us. But sometimes, we don't have a choice. We fight because it's the only way forward." He nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "I don't know what's next, but I know that I want to be part of whatever comes next. With you." She smiled, a look of warmth crossing her face. "And you will be. We've fought together. And now, we rebuild together." The man felt a sense of peace, though he still didn't fully understand everything that had happened. But standing beside her, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't alone anymore. The fight had brought them together, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The princess turned to the path ahead, the journey now stretching out before them. She had a duty to her people, to her galaxy, and to the universe that had once turned its back on her. But now she had something more, someone who believed in her and in the hope of a better future. "We can't change everything in one day," she said, looking back at him, "but we'll take it one step at a time. Together." He smiled, the weight of uncertainty still there, but now it felt manageable. The future wasn't clear, but with her by his side, it didn't seem so impossible anymore. "Together," he echoed. And with that, they began walking forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They didn't know exactly what the future held, but they were no longer afraid. They were ready to build something new, something better, a future where strength wasn't just about fighting, but about hope, unity, and the bond they shared. The stars above twinkled brightly, as if watching over them, guiding them into the unknown, and they walked on, side by side, toward their new beginning.